I always thought marriage was for life, at least until Netflix added the divorce section to my viewing history. My name is Sam Grady, and I'm about to tell you how my perfect suburban life turned into the most entertaining disaster Laurel Ridge has ever witnessed. It started 3 days before Christmas in our pristine kitchen with its marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that screamed, "We have money but no soul." My wife, Clarissa, Clary to her Instagram followers, stood there in her designer athleisure wear, perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. "I'm not going to your family's Christmas dinner," she announced without looking up from whatever social media crisis demanded her immediate attention. "I'm tired of pretending to enjoy your mother's passive-aggressive comments and your sister's wine-fueled gossip sessions." I paused, coffee mug halfway to my lips. After 15 years in real estate, I'd developed a sixth sense for when someone was bluffing. This wasn't a bluff. "Okay," I said, setting down my mug with deliberate calm. "I understand completely." She finally looked up, clearly expecting a fight. When none came, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "That's it? You're not going to argue with me?" "Nope. You're absolutely right. Family gatherings can be exhausting." I grabbed my keys from the granite island. "I'll just let Mom know you won't be there." The confusion in her eyes shifted to something else. Disappointment, maybe? Like she'd been hoping for drama, and I'd served her vanilla pudding instead. What Clary didn't know was that I'd already made alternative arrangements. 3 weeks earlier, at the annual Laurel Ridge holiday mixer, I'd reconnected with Zoe Harper, a former colleague from my days at Premier Properties. She was witty, unpredictable, and had recently moved back to town after her divorce. More importantly, she had zero patience for suburban pretense. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "So you're really bringing someone else to Christmas dinner?" Pete asked that evening as he poured me a whiskey at Murphy's, the only bar in Laurel Ridge that didn't serve cocktails with names like Suburban Sunset. "I'm bringing a friend who actually wants to be there," I corrected. "There's a difference." Pete, who'd been bartending longer than I'd been married, just shook his head. "You know this is going to blow up in your face, right?" "Probably, but at least it'll be entertaining." Christmas Eve arrived with the kind of crisp winter air that made everything look like a holiday card. I picked up Zoe at 7, and she emerged from her townhouse wearing a red dress that was festive without trying too hard. "So, what's the game plan?" she asked as we drove through the twinkling lights of Laurel Ridge's main street. "Am I your girlfriend, your friend, or your weapon of mass destruction?" "How about we just see what happens?" She laughed, a genuine sound that I realized I hadn't heard in my own house for months. "I like your style, Sam Grady." My mother's house was already packed when we arrived. Ruth Grady, at 65, still commanded every room she entered. She greeted me with her usual hug, then turned expectant eyes toward Zoe. "Mom, this is Zoe Harper. Zoe, my mother Ruth." "Mrs. Grady, thank you so much for including me," Zoe said, extending a bottle of wine. "Sam's told me wonderful things about your famous Christmas roast." I watched my mother's expression shift from polite curiosity to genuine warmth. Within minutes, Zoe was being introduced around the room like she'd been part of the family for years. My sister Dana cornered me by the fireplace. "Where's Clary? And who's the redhead charming mom?" Clary had other plans. Zoe's a friend. Dana's eyes lit up with the kind of gleeful anticipation that had gotten us both in trouble as kids. "Oh, this is going to be good. I'm definitely posting pictures tonight." Dinner was a revelation. Zoe fit seamlessly into our family's rhythm of gentle teasing and storytelling. She laughed at my uncle's terrible jokes, complimented my aunt's green bean casserole, and even managed to deflect Mom's not-so-subtle questions about her intentions with perfect grace. "So Zoe," my cousin Mark asked over dessert, "what do you do?" "I'm in property management now, but I used to work with Sam at Premier. That's actually how we met. He was trying to convince a client that a house with a pink bathroom was vintage chic." The table erupted in laughter, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Genuine happiness. As we were leaving, Dana pulled me aside. "I like her. She's real. Not like—" She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. "Just a friend, Dana." "Sure she is." She held up her phone. "Smile. This one's going on Instagram." The drive back to Zoe's place was comfortable, filled with easy conversation about the evening. As I walked her to her door, she turned to face me. "That was fun. Your family's great." "Even with all the chaos?" "Especially with all the chaos. Real families are messy." She paused, studying my face in the porch light. "When's the last time you laughed like that at home?" I didn't have an answer, which was an answer in itself. I got home just after 11 to find every light in the house blazing and my phone buzzing with missed calls. Clary's BMW was in the driveway, but parked behind it was a cherry red Mustang convertible that I didn't recognize. The front door was unlocked, and I could hear voices from the living room, Clary's sharp tone and a deeper male voice I didn't immediately place. "Told you he wouldn't just accept it," the man was saying. "Guys like Sam don't go down without a fight." "You don't know Sam like I do," Clary replied. "He's all talk. He'll sulk for a few days, and then everything will go back to normal." I stood in the hallway, keys still in my hand, listening to my wife discuss my predictable nature with a stranger in my own living room at midnight on Christmas Eve. That's when I realized the evening's entertainment was just getting started. The next morning brought the kind of suburban warfare that would make Sun Tzu proud. I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, most of them from Clary. The general theme was outrage mixed with wounded victimhood, a combination she'd perfected over our years together. "How could you embarrass me like that?" was the opening salvo when she finally cornered me in the kitchen. She'd clearly been waiting, positioned strategically between me and the coffee maker like some kind of caffeinated checkpoint. "Embarrass you how, exactly?" I asked, reaching around her for a mug. "By going to a family dinner you explicitly said you didn't want to attend?" "By bringing another woman. Dana's Instagram post has been shared 37 times already. Everyone's asking where I was and who she is." I paused in the act of pouring coffee. "You counted the shares?" "That's not the point, Sam." "Actually, I think that's exactly the point." I took a sip and studied her face. Even furious, Clarissa was beautiful in that polished, high-maintenance way that had first attracted me. But somewhere along the way, that polish had hardened into something brittle. "You were more concerned about your social media presence than spending Christmas with my family." "Your family doesn't like me. My family doesn't know you. There's a difference." She opened her mouth to respond, but her phone buzzed. Without hesitation, she grabbed it, fingers flying across the screen. The conversation was apparently over. I took my coffee and headed to my home office, but not before I noticed something interesting. A men's leather jacket draped over one of our dining room chairs. Expensive, not mine. The next few days passed in a cold war of pointed silences and strategic social media posts. Clary threw herself into damage control, posting carefully curated photos of our house decorated for Christmas with captions about quiet holidays and intimate celebrations. Each post felt like a small act of erasure, as if she could Photoshop our problems out of existence. I, meanwhile, found myself texting with Zoe more than I probably should have. Nothing inappropriate, just funny observations about holiday movies and complaints about post-Christmas grocery store crowds. But each message felt like a small rebellion against the suffocating perfection of my marriage. The real drama started on New Year's Eve. I was at Murphy's with Pete, watching the ball drop on the bar's ancient television, when Tessa Morrison slid onto the stool next to me. Tessa was part of Clary's inner circle, a perfectly groomed gossip machine who treated other people's business like her personal entertainment network. "Sam, I haven't seen you in forever." She leaned in closer than necessary, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume mixed with wine. Clary's been so busy with her new project. New project? "Oh, you know, the life coaching thing with Marcus. Such an interesting career pivot for her." Marcus. The name clicked into place. The voice from Christmas Eve, the leather jacket, the red Mustang. "Right," I said carefully. "The life coaching." Tessa's smile sharpened. She was fishing, and we both knew it. "Marcus Lane is so inspiring, don't you think? All that motivation and personal development. Clary's really thrown herself into it." "I'm sure she has." "They've been working together almost every day, sometimes quite late." She paused for effect. "But I'm sure you know all about that." I finished my drink and stood up. "Happy New Year, Tessa." But as I walked away, I heard her on her phone. "Julia, you'll never guess who I just talked to." The next morning, I did what any reasonable person would do. I paid attention. Really paid attention for the first time in months. Clary's schedule had indeed changed. Late meetings that ran past dinner, weekend workshops that required her to be unreachable for hours, new clothes that were justified as investment pieces for networking, and always, always, her phone face down on every surface. The breakthrough came accidentally. I was in the garage looking for jumper cables to help our neighbor with a low battery when I heard voices in the backyard. Our property backed up to a small wooded area, and sound carried strangely between the trees. "I can't keep doing this," Clary was saying. Sam's starting to ask questions. "So tell him the truth?" The male voice was definitely the same one from Christmas Eve. "You're not happy. You haven't been happy for years." "It's not that simple, Marcus. There's the house, the business, our reputation in the community." "Screw the community. Life's too short to waste it on someone who doesn't appreciate you." I moved closer to the fence, staying in the shadows. He brought another woman to Christmas dinner, posted pictures all over social media like some kind of victory lap. Maybe he's already moved on. Maybe this is your chance to do the same. There was a long pause, then the sound of movement. Through a gap in the fence boards, I caught a glimpse of red fabric, Clary's Christmas dress pressed against a dark jacket. "I need more time," she whispered. "I'm not waiting forever, Clary. Julia's divorce was final last month. She's made it clear she's interested." Julia, another member of Clary's circle. The pieces were falling into place with the precision of a Swiss watch. I backed away from the fence and went inside, my mind racing. The smart play would be to confront her directly, have an adult conversation about the state of our marriage, maybe even pursue counseling. Instead, I called Zoe. "Want to grab lunch tomorrow?" I asked when she answered. "I could use some advice about a professional situation." "Sure, everything okay?" "Let's just say I'm learning some interesting things about market dynamics." She laughed. "Cryptic. I like it." "Murphy's at noon?" "Perfect." That night, Clary came home late from another workshop, full of apologies and explanations about traffic. She kissed my cheek with lips that tasted like wine and guilt, then disappeared into the bathroom for what seemed like an unusually long shower. I sat in bed, listening to the water run, and realized I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not heartbreak or rage, but a strange sense of clarity. The marriage I'd been trying to save was already over. I just hadn't been paying attention to the funeral. My phone buzzed with a text from Dana. "Mom wants to know when she can see Zoe again. Apparently she made quite an impression." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Soon." The water finally stopped running, and I heard Clary moving around the bathroom, going through her elaborate nighttime routine. In a few minutes, she'd come to bed, and we'd lie there in polite silence, two strangers sharing a mattress and a mortgage. But tomorrow, I'd start playing a different game entirely. Lunch with Zoe at Murphy's turned into a 3-hour strategy session that felt more like a military briefing than a casual meal. I laid out everything I'd discovered, and she listened with the focused attention of someone who'd been through her own marital battlefield. "So let me get this straight," she said, stealing one of my fries. "Your wife is having an affair with a life coach named Marcus. Her friend Julia is apparently waiting in the wings, and Tessa is spreading gossip about your marriage like it's her part-time job. That about covers it." "And you're not angry?" I considered the question. I'm angry about the lies, the sneaking around, the way she's trying to make me the villain in her story. But the affair itself? I shrugged. Maybe Marcus is right. Maybe we haven't been happy for years? Zoe nodded slowly. "So, what's your endgame here?" "I want out of the marriage with my dignity intact and my finances protected. But first, I want everyone to know exactly who decided to blow this up." "Revenge? Justice? There's a difference." She grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that. Because I have some ideas." The first step was documentation. Zoe, it turned out, had learned a few things about evidence gathering during her own divorce. Nothing illegal or invasive, just paying attention to patterns and keeping records. Over the next week, I started noting everything. When Clary left the house, when she returned, the explanations she offered. I saved her social media posts, screenshotted the comments from her friends, and kept a simple log of our interactions. The breakthrough came when I decided to surprise her with lunch at her office. Clary worked for a boutique marketing firm that specialized in social media management for small businesses. I'd visited maybe 3 times in the past year, which suddenly seemed like a red flag in itself. "Oh, Sam!" Her assistant Jennifer looked genuinely surprised to see me. "Clary's not here. She's at that workshop in Millfield. Won't be back until after 5. "Workshop?" "The life coaching certification thing she's doing. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 months. Jennifer's expression shifted as she registered my confusion. "You didn't know about that?" "Of course I knew," I said smoothly. "I just got the days mixed up. Thanks, Jen." But as I walked back to my car, I pulled out my phone and checked Clary's Instagram. Her most recent story, posted 20 minutes earlier, showed a latte and a croissant with the location tagged as Downtown Cafe, which was definitely not in Millfield. I drove to the cafe and found a parking spot with a clear view of the entrance. I didn't have to wait long. At 12:47, Clary emerged with a tall man in an expensive suit. He was handsome in that generic personal trainer way, with perfect teeth and the kind of tan that came from a salon rather than actual sunlight. They stood close together on the sidewalk, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. She looked up at him with an expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Pure adoration mixed with excitement. I took a photo. Not to hurt her, but to remind myself that this was real. That evening, Clary came home full of stories about her workshop and the amazing breakthrough she'd had about goal setting and personal accountability. She was animated in a way that made me realize how flat and distant she'd become with me. "That's wonderful," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "It sounds like Marcus really knows what he's doing." She froze in the doorway. "How do you know his name?" "You mentioned it before. The instructor, right?" "Right. Yes. Marcus Lane. He's very professional." "I'm sure he is." The next phase of my plan required backup, so I called Dana. "I need a favor," I said when she answered, "and it might get messy." "My favorite kind of favor. What do you need?" "I'm going to ask you to throw a party. Nothing fancy, just a casual get-together. Maybe next Saturday?" "Okay. And the messy part?" "I want you to invite Clary's friends. Tessa, Julia, maybe a few others from their circle." "Sam, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to give everyone a chance to be honest. Sometimes people need the right setting to tell the truth." Dana was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure about one thing. I'm tired of being the only person in my marriage who doesn't know what's actually happening." "Okay, but if this blows up, you're buying the wine for the next family gathering." "Deal." Saturday arrived with a kind of crisp January weather that made everyone want to stay indoors. Dana's house was perfect for what I had in mind. Open floor plan, good acoustics, and multiple conversation areas that would encourage people to cluster and gossip. I arrived early to help set up, bringing Zoe as my date. She looked stunning in a simple black dress that managed to be both elegant and approachable. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked as we arranged chairs in Dana's living room. Too late to back out now. Clary arrived fashionably late, making an entrance in a new dress I didn't recognize. She'd brought Tessa and Julia as backup, and the three of them moved through the room like a coordinated social media team, posing for photos and making sure everyone knew they were having the most amazing time. I played the perfect host, making sure everyone had drinks and introducing Zoe around like she belonged there, which increasingly she did. The turning point came around 9 o'clock, when the wine had loosened tongues and the conversation had naturally drifted toward relationships and marriage. Tessa, never one to miss an opportunity for drama, decided to stir the pot. "It's so refreshing to see couples who are honest about their needs," she said, looking directly at me. "Don't you think, Sam? Sometimes people grow apart, and it's better to acknowledge that than pretend everything's perfect." "Absolutely," I agreed. "Honesty is the foundation of any healthy relationship." Clary shifted uncomfortably on the couch. "Of course, some people are better at honesty than others," I continued. "Take Marcus Lane, for example. Clary's told me so much about his approach to personal development, all that focus on authenticity and living your truth." The room went very quiet. Julia's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Tessa's eyes darted between me and Clary like she was watching a tennis match. "I think," Clary said carefully, "that we should probably head home soon." "Oh, don't leave on my account," I said pleasantly. "I was just thinking how nice it would be to meet Marcus sometime. Maybe we could all have dinner together. You, me, Marcus, and Julia." The silence stretched until Dana, bless her heart, jumped in with a completely unrelated story about her neighbor's new dog. But the damage was done. I'd fired a warning shot across the bow, and everyone in the room knew it. As people started to leave, Clary cornered me in Dana's kitchen. "What the hell was that about?" "What was what about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Someone who'd been living a double life so long she'd forgotten what the truth looked like. "Clary," I said gently, "if you want out of this marriage, just say so. We're both adults. We can handle this like civilized people." For a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been relief, but then it snapped back into place. "I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong." "Am I?" She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. I found Zoe waiting by my car, and we drove home in comfortable silence. As I pulled into her driveway, she turned to face me. "You gave her an out tonight, a clean exit with dignity intact." "I did." "What happens if she doesn't take it?" I thought about the question as I walked her to her door. "Then I guess we find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object," she laughed. My money's on the unstoppable force. As I drove home, I realized she was probably right. The retaliation came swiftly and from an unexpected direction. Monday morning, I was barely through the door at Grady and Associates when my business partner Tom pulled me into his office. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind us. "I got a call this morning from Jennifer Walsh." Jennifer Walsh was our biggest client, a wealthy widow who'd been buying and selling properties through our firm for the past 3 years. She was also, I realized with growing dread, a member of Clary's yoga class. "She's concerned about some rumors she's been hearing," Tom continued. "Something about inappropriate behavior with female clients." The coffee I'd just swallowed turned to acid in my stomach. "Inappropriate behavior?" She was very vague, but she mentioned your wife seemed worried about your professional boundaries. I sat down heavily in Tom's guest chair. "Tom, you've known me for 8 years. Have I ever?" "Of course not. But you know how this business works. Reputation is everything, and if clients start questioning our professionalism..." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you should take some time off. Let things cool down. I'll handle your active listings, and we can revisit this in a few weeks." I stared at him, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. In one conversation, Clary had managed to attack my livelihood, my reputation, and my future earning potential. This is about my marriage, not my job performance. I know that. You know that. But Mrs. Walsh doesn't know that, and neither do the other clients who might hear these rumors. I left the office in a daze and found myself driving aimlessly through Laurel Ridge's perfectly manicured streets. Everything looked the same: pristine lawns, expensive cars, houses that screamed success and stability. But underneath the surface, I was beginning to understand, lay a network of gossip and manipulation that could destroy someone's life with surgical precision. I called Zoe from the parking lot of a strip mall coffee shop. She went nuclear, I told her. Attacked my business, my reputation, everything. "Okay," she said calmly. "So now we know what we're dealing with. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I honestly don't know." "Well, I do. You're going to fight back. But first, you're going to come over here and we're going to make a plan." Zoe's townhouse was a study in comfortable chaos. Books everywhere, mismatched furniture that somehow worked together, and walls covered with photographs from her travels. It felt more like home than my own house had in years. "Show me everything," she said, settling next to me on her couch with a legal pad and a cup of tea. I pulled out my phone and walked her through the documentation I'd been gathering. Photos, timestamps, social media screenshots, and the log of Clary's activities. "This is good," she said, making notes. "But it's all defensive. We need to go on offense." "Meaning?" "Meaning it's time to find out exactly who we're dealing with. Tell me about Marcus." I pulled up his social media profiles on my phone. Marcus Lane, 37, certified life coach and personal trainer. His Instagram was a carefully curated collection of motivational quotes, shirtless gym photos, and pictures of expensive meals at trendy restaurants. "Look at this," Zoe said, scrolling through his posts. "He's tagged at the same restaurant as Clary 3 times in the past month. And here..." She showed me a photo of Marcus with his arm around a blonde woman. "That's Julia, right?" I looked closer. It was definitely Julia, but the timestamp on the photo was from 6 months ago. So he was with Julia before Clary? Or maybe he's with both of them. Look at the comments. I read through the responses to Marcus's posts. Julia commented on almost everything, usually with flirty emojis. But so did several other women, including someone named Ashley who seemed particularly invested in his workout routine. "This guy's running a regular operation," Zoe said. "I bet if we dug deeper, we'd find a pattern." "How do we dig deeper?" She grinned. "Leave that to me. I have a few ideas." The next morning, I got a call from my mother. "Sam, I need to see you. Can you come over for lunch?" There was something in her voice that made me cancel my plans and drive straight to her house. I found her in the kitchen, making sandwiches with the kind of focused intensity she usually reserved for holiday cooking. "Mom, what's going on?" She set down the knife and turned to face me. "I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." My stomach dropped. "Okay." "Clary came to see me yesterday. She was very upset about your behavior at Dana's party. She said you've been acting strange, bringing other women around, making accusations." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "And?" "And she asked me to talk to you, to help you understand how much you're hurting her." "Mom, let me finish." She held up a hand. "She also told me some things about your business practices that concerned her, about how you've been too friendly with some of your female clients." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own mother, The woman who'd raised me to value honesty and integrity above everything else was looking at me with doubt in her eyes. You don't believe that. I don't want to believe it. But Sam, if there's even a grain of truth to what she's saying, you need to get help. There's no grain of truth, Mom. There's not even a speck of truth. Clary is having an affair with a man named Marcus Lane, and she's trying to destroy my reputation to cover her tracks. Ruth's face went white. That's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious situation. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken, the social media evidence, the timeline of lies. She's been lying to both of us for months. My mother studied the evidence with the same careful attention she'd once given to my homework. When she looked up, her expression had changed completely. Oh, Sam, I'm so sorry. Why did you believe her? Because she's family. Because I wanted to think the best of everyone involved. She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. And because she told me things about your childhood, about patterns of behavior that worried her. What kind of patterns? She said you'd always been possessive, that you had trouble accepting when relationships ended. She mentioned that girl you dated in college. What was her name? Sarah? Sarah Morrison. My college girlfriend, who'd broken up with me junior year because she'd fallen for someone else. I'd been hurt, sure, but I'd moved on. We'd even remained friends. She's rewriting history, Mom, making me the villain in a story that doesn't exist. Ruth nodded slowly. I can see that now. But Sam, she was very convincing, very detailed. If I hadn't seen this evidence, you would have believed her. I might have. The realization hit me like a cold wave. If Clary could convince my own mother that I was unstable and potentially dangerous, what could she do to my clients, my friends, my entire life? I left my mother's house with a new understanding of what I was up against. This wasn't just about a marriage ending badly. This was about someone systematically destroying my reputation, my relationships, and my future. But two could play that game. I called Zoe from the car. How's your research going? Better than expected. Can you meet me at Murphy's tonight? I have some very interesting things to show you. What kind of things? The kind that might turn this whole situation around. That evening, Zoe spread a collection of printouts across our corner table like she was laying out evidence for a jury. Marcus Lane is a very busy man, she began. In the past year, he's been life coaching at least 6 different women in the area. All married, all wealthy, all going through what they describe on social media as personal growth journeys. She showed me screenshots from various social platforms. Here's Ashley Morrison, yes, related to Tessa, posting about her transformative coaching experience. Here's Linda Chen talking about discovering her authentic self. And here's the interesting part. She pulled out a printed article from the local newspaper's online edition. 3 of these women have filed for divorce in the past 8 months, all citing irreconcilable differences and growing apart, all using the same law firm. I studied the information, pieces clicking into place. He's not just having affairs, he's running a business. A very profitable business. Think about it. He targets wealthy, unhappy wives, convinces them they deserve better, helps them transition out of their marriages, and probably takes a cut of the settlement through various consulting fees. And if the husband gets suspicious, the wife destroys his reputation first, making him look like the problem. It's actually brilliant in a completely sociopathic way. I leaned back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. So, what do we do with this information? Zoe smiled. We give everyone exactly what they want, the truth.